I'm Dave Rothrock with The Ranting Angler.
And I'm Phil Gay, Phil Gay Casting.
We're here today to talk about fly casting.
Dave, when I'm teaching students, I see the same problems time and time again. So it's fairly predictable. I don't know what your most common fault is, but my biggest problem with beginners is that they overstroke the rod. Way too much rod movement for the length of the line they're trying to cast, and it's often associated with excessive use of the wrist. So they're back here like this, and they got all kinds of rod motion going on. When you only need that much, and they're back here like this. So what do you see as the most common one?
I have an opportunity to fish some larger water. And as a casting instructor, sometimes it flat out hurts me. I'll see this fly angler casting these absolutely beautiful loops, extending that cast to reach that fish they're targeting. And all of a sudden, when they go to present the fly, everything changes. They drop that rod, they continue that acceleration just about parallel to the water. And you watch this line flow out there in a tremendously wide loop now, and all of a sudden it goes crashing down, and we don't even get any turnover of that leader. And I feel so badly because that person has invested so much time and effort in casting these wonderful loops that I'm watching, and they go ahead and in their mind they say, everything needs to change, I need to overpower this cast, and it dies.
Well, I tell people all the time, if it's working on your false cast, it's going to work on your delivery cast.
That's exactly what I say too.
You don't need any more juice on the delivery cast.
Right.
Especially if you're trying to go under something like a limb.
Oh yeah.
You put a little extra juice on it, it just pops the fly up underneath the limb.
If we don't see a completely straight travel of that rod tip, we're going to see a loop that goes like this at the end.
Right.
And we go to develop all of this wonderful casting, and then we watch this loop go like this, and it goes right into the bush and doesn't fall under the bush. So Phil, one of the things that I see that's a real problem with a lot of casters is creep. Now, simply defined, creep is a matter of an unintentional movement in the opposite direction from what you just cast. And I see it occur primarily in the back cast. I would say 99 and 100% of the time. We go back to the old Ivory Snow commercials. Most people won't remember what that is, but we do. Yeah. And what happens is, and to demonstrate creep, is that when I come into my cast, my hand unintentionally moves a little bit forward. And what that does is allows for a really compressed forward stroke. Now, obviously, some people will creep a little bit more than others, but it's obviously going to be an issue. Now, one of the remedies, and to me the best ideal remedy, is to introduce what we call drift. And that's, once we stop accelerating on this back cast, we just continue that hand backward nice and smoothly, because in reality, for a good caster, we're not even going to be able to pick it up with our eye. So what it does, though, then is actually increases the potential stroke length for that forward cast. So if I have a problem with creep, now all of a sudden it's here, there's my drift, and I've set myself up for a good forward cast. So remember, we can't do opposites at the same time. If you're going to drift, you can't creep. That's what it boils down to. And once somebody can be able to incorporate that into their cast, everything really smooths out, and they're going to see a real improvement, especially in that presentation cast. Because what does creep usually result in, Phil?
Tailing loop?
You got it. You got it. Phil, one of the things too we see is these tailing loops. And to be honest with you, a lot of people will call them wind knots, but in reality, they're not caused by wind, are they?
No.
Oh,
they're bad casting knots.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. What do you see with regard to someone throwing a tailing loop?
Well, we mentioned one of the causes is too short of a casting stroke caused by creep. That's one. But sometimes it's just overpowered. They start powering in the back and then decelerate forward. That's going to, you know, that always does a tailing loop. The, the one I see the most is they're often just hitting it too hard. You know, I'm bugging them about saying, I need a little more power in your cast, and then they put a little more in, all right. You know.
Right in the beginning.
Right.
Yes.
So they start powering back here, and boom,
Yep.
yeah, lovely tailing loop there. So.
And what's interesting too with the tailing loop and the cause, you know, we talk about that extra added power. In reality, I've seen people add that anywhere throughout the stroke. And I've had some of my folks come up to me and they say, help me with my cast. And what I see is slow, with a little bit of acceleration, but they get out to the end and they go boom. And there's your tailing loop.
Right. Almost every tailing loop is some form of misapplication of power.
They really try to pick up way too much line.
Yeah.
And they're just not able to do it, and everything falls apart. Yeah. And you know, they're standing there saying,
yeah,
what happened?
It ends up back here like this.
Yeah, if they're lucky.
Yeah, right.
If they're lucky.
Yeah.
A lot of times it'll pile right back there, yeah, just behind them. And they're not in any position to think about doing anything. And okay, I tell them, you know, hey, don't deal with a lot of fly line. It's best to deal with a short line to start out and then add to it. Every time you false cast, you're setting yourself up for a mistake to enter into that casting equation.
That's what I say. Every false cast is an opportunity for failure.
Exactly, exactly. So I tell people, I said, unless you have a reason to false cast, and you know, we know that false casting allows us to change direction, for example,
right,
or obviously we're going to go ahead and add line to the cast in a false cast. Yeah. But if you're just going to go ahead and false cast back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and not present, how much time have you wasted?
Right.
Actually, about, let's see, if we can present in 2 false casts and we do 5, we've wasted 3.
Right.
Yep.
No fish in the air.
Amen to that.
No fish in the air.
That's right.